trusting His promise to help us along the way. Trials will come, but He'll carry us through. There's nothing my Jesus, the Son of God, can do. With Jesus building bridges to life, yeah. Where we're breaking down the barriers, we'll do it with our Savior in mind, becoming believers in Christ, yeah. At Arlington Road, we're picking up the pieces, oh yeah. At Arlington Road, not our way, but God's way. I wanna be a Christian in my heart, oh Lord.
Well, good evening and welcome to the Arlington Road Church of Christ Wednesday night Bible study. This is the last Bible study of 2022 for the Arlington Road Church of Christ. It's been a great year and we thank God for blessing us in a mighty way. We're going to talk about Jephthah's vow on tonight. And probably the vow that Jephthah made is what he is most remembered about. It might be an infamous vow. We want to talk about that vow. We also want to talk about human sacrifice. And we want to talk about some tension that I find in the text when we talk about human sacrifice. And then we want to find out what's the learning point. What's the primary thing that we can learn from Jephthah's vow and his daughter, and we want to talk about that. If you remember where we left off last week in Judges chapter 11, Jephthah has agreed to become the leader of Israel. He has agreed to come to their rescue. And Jephthah took a diplomatic approach. He sent messengers to talk to the king of the Ammonites. And really he wanted to find out what's the problem. just what's the problem? Tell me what's the problem. Can we work this thing out? And I think it's always good to try to work things out. Jephthah took a peaceable approach. And when you take a peaceable approach, everybody involved needs to be on board for peace. That's sometimes difficult to get everybody on the same page, especially when we talk about having peace. And Jephthah sent messengers. What is the problem? Well, what we're going to find is part of the problem is that the perception of history is not the same. The Ammonite king has a perception of history that is different from the perception that Jephthah has. And I even see that existing today in congregational life and then across our brotherhood. Perception is not always the same. The Ammonite king perception of history is that Israel took their land. But Jephthah's perspective, which happens to be God's perspective, and that's what we're always trying to get at, and it's difficult because when you're trying to come together for peace sake, when you're trying to figure out what is right, usually, well, I shouldn't say usually, there are times when everybody involved feels that their perspective is God's perspective. But in this case, there is just really one perspective that is God's perspective. So the king of the Ammonites said that y'all took the land. We're talking about when Moses led the children of Israel out of Egypt. and they're going through the wilderness. Now, it's important to realize that God said that they were going to the promised land. So the right perspective is God's perspective. And God took them this way. They're going to get there. Now, they can get there the easy way, or they can get there the hard way. But they're going to get there. That's the case. And the king felt that they took the land. Now, what I've been trying to share with the members at Arlington Road and with those that I talk to is it's good to know our biblical history. It's good to know biblical history. And one of the things that we find is that Jephthah knew history. Moses had been long dead. Joshua had been long dead. But the story of the wilderness journey had been repeated and passed down. And that's the good thing about Bible study. If we just tell the story and then repeat the story, we don't have to make up anything. Just repeat the story the way that it was told. That's one way to get us on the same page, if we just repeat the story. Now that's hard to do sometimes. It is hard to get everybody on the same page, but that's what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is get everybody on the same page. Wouldn't that be wonderful if everybody could get on the same page? And what happens here is Jephthah's version, which is God's version, and that's the version we always want, is that we didn't take the land. We asked for permission. We asked for permission to go this way, and because of whatever insecurity that existed at that time, the Ammonites did not give permission, but they started war with the children of Israel. Well, what would you do if you are attacked? Israel protected themselves. And because God was on their side, and that's the important thing, God was on their side, God gave them the victory. Now, when we, so now what we find when we get to Judges chapter 11, I want to show you in just a moment a map of the where Jephthah and his army fought. Now, my sound is probably going to go out when I show you this, but I do want you to see this map, and it's going to show you the area where they fought. When you look at this map, when you see this map, you're going to find Jephthah's campaign. You're going to find where he defeated the Ammonites. Then you're going to find where he defeated the Ephraimites. And then he captured the ford and he kills the Ephraimite stragglers. You're going to find an area where he goes from Gilead, he goes from Ammon, he goes into Ephraim. Doesn't really go down to Moab, but there's an Ammonite raid. He's going to kill at least 42,000 Ephraimites, and he's going to be successful. He's going to be successful. But Jephthah made a vow. And let me show you this. Let me show you this map first for those who are watching. Now that was the map. That was the map. And members at Arlington Road, I sent some handouts out online. And if anybody else wants them, they can just contact us and we'll get that to you. But you can see the map. So now let's go to Judges chapter 11 and pick up around verse 29. Now the Spirit of the Lord came upon Jephthah, so that he passed through Gilead and Manasseh. Then he passed through Mizpah of Gilead, and from Mizpah of Gilead he went on to the sons of Ammon. Now, what we want to do is give Jephthah credit where credit is due before we criticize my man Jephthah. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him. And we find other places in Scripture where a judge received the Spirit of the Lord. Samson received the Spirit of the Lord. I believe Gideon received the Spirit of the Lord, which indicates that they were empowered by God. And now, what we're going to find is that Jephthah makes a vow. Now, as we look at this text, there are some tensions in the text. I mean, and by tension, what I mean is there's some things that are difficult to grasp, difficult to understand, especially when we start talking about human sacrifice and what took place during that period of time. It's a tension, and we're going to deal with those tensions. But one of the things that we want to talk about is vows that individuals made. Making a vow in Bible times was not a new thing. There were times when God initiated a vow, and a vow would be like an agreement. Sometimes a vow would be a covenant. And we know that in the case of Abraham, that God initiated the covenant, the agreement with Abraham. That's going to be important as we talk about this business of human sacrifice, that in Abraham's case, it was God who initiated the vow, who initiated the contract, initiated the covenant. In this passage with Jephthah, Jephthah is the one who initiates the vow. He actually says in verse 30, to the Lord, if you will indeed give the sons of Amnon into my hand, then it shall be that whatever comes out the doors of my house to meet me when I return in peace from the sons of Amnon, it shall be the Lord's, and I will offer it up as a burnt offering. Now, I don't know how you look at that. There's a number of ways of looking at that. Is Jephthah bargaining with God? And then if Jephthah is bargaining with God, how can you bargain with God? I mean, what do you have really to give if God doesn't do his part? But God is always going to do his part. Now, some may look at it as a bargaining chip. Well, God, if you do this, then I'll do that. And then some people will say, well, there's nothing really wrong with that. Jephthah is only saying that, Lord, when you, but he didn't say when, he said if, but when you do this, I'll show my faithfulness to you by doing this. Well, I can lean with that. I can go in that direction. In the morning class, I shared that, when we are baptized, when we come to Jesus, we make a vow, in a sense. And, of course, the plan of salvation is hearing the gospel, believing what you heard, and then you repent of past sins. But then you have to publicly confess your faith that Jesus Christ is the Son of the living God. In a marriage ceremony, the husband gives a vow to his wife, bride-to-be, and the wife gives a vow to her husband-to-be. Will you take this woman to be your lawful wedded wife? And he says, I do, or I will. Will you take this man to be your lawful wedded husband? And she says, I do, or I will. Well, you're making a vow. You are committing yourselves to one another. I really wish that individuals, members of the church, my brothers and sisters, understood the vow that they make when they become a Christian. You're making a vow that you're going to serve God. And that vow is demonstrated by your service to him through your local church. Let me just drop this before I get to the vow of Jephthah, before we talk about human sacrifice. We're in the age of live streaming. We're using the social media platform, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, what has come as a result of this is that members sometimes find loopholes where they are not as committed in keeping the vow that they made to Christ through their local church. And what I mean by that is because of the opportunities that social media provides, members now can remotely listen to a number of people. You can be a member here and a member there. We've got, I've heard of people claiming to be online members. Their membership is actually in one city, but they're an online member somewhere else. I understand where you can take advantage and listen, on Sunday afternoons after my worship service, after I've got through preaching. I check out a lot of people. I want to see what's been said, but that's after. I do not replace that opportunity with my commitment to the local church. But we're living in that age. I remember when I was in Memphis. Well, before I left Hopewell and went to Memphis, one of my ministry goals was I wanted to be part of a national TV movement, and God blessed us to do that. We were on the Black Family Channel. Then we moved to the Word Network, and the Word Network we were able to reach at least 70 million people. And every week somebody would request a tape of the DVD. We offered free CDs of the service. And there's no telling how many people watched it. But we were not in competition with another local congregation. We came on Sunday afternoons. I think then we moved to Saturday mornings. And, I guess, I got accustomed to that. I could be flying from one place to another. And somebody said, I know you. I've seen you on TV. Well, there was no competition with other congregations. But now we're living in an age, and I say take advantage of the World Wide Web, take advantage of social media, take advantage of Facebook. But members should remember their vow. Members should remember that when you obeyed the gospel, when you became a member of the Lord's church, you were making a vow. And that vow is demonstrated through your service, your commitment to your local church. Well, vows were important in Bible times. There's never been a time when a vow was not important. So Jephthah makes a vow. And some say that this vow was rash. Some say that Jephthah did not give much attention to the vow. And that's said because of the way everything played out. Here are two schools of thoughts concerning the vow that Jephthah made. One believes, and here's the vow, Lord, if you give me victory or give me the sons of Ammon in my hand, then whatever comes out of my house, when I return, it shall be the Lord's, and I will offer it up as a burnt offering. Well, here's one school of thought. One school of thought is that Jephthah believes that Jephthah actually put his daughter to death by sacrifice, while the other school of thought believes that his vow only involved consecrating her to perpetual virginity. And some say that she ended up as an attendant at the tabernacle at Shiloh. All right. Older Jewish commentaries favored the former view, that he put his daughter to death. Now, that creates what I call tension in the text. Tension in the text. Tension in the text. And here's the tension, my brothers and sisters. Y'all come a little close now. Y'all come a little close. We gonna talk about this. Y'all come a little close. Human sacrifice was a pagan ritual. It was not something that the children of Israel were commanded to do. Matter of fact, when it comes to child sacrifice is unconditionally condemned in Scripture. There were laws forbidding child sacrifice. Leviticus 18:21, the god Moloch of the Ammonites, and then Exodus 22:29. And then we can find some instances of child sacrifice. 2 Kings 3:27, 2 Kings 16:3, 2 Kings chapter 17 and verse 17. And then in 2 Kings 23:10, when Josiah was going through the reforms, there was a desecration taking place where child sacrifices were offered. So there's many arguments against child sacrifice. Child sacrifice is the idolatrous practice of the nations. So here's where I say is a tension in the text. Did Jephthah have in mind when he made the vow of offering a human? And I do not think he did. If Jephthah had in mind of offering a human sacrifice, then the question is, why would God accept it? Why would God accept something in this case? Now, I know somebody might say, well, Brother Crusoe, you mentioned Abraham. And I read Genesis chapter 22, where God told Abraham, and that's the key. God told Abraham to take his son Isaac up to Mount Moriah and offer him as a sacrifice. Well, see, are y'all listening? What happened there? God told Abraham. Now we know that God told Abraham to test his faith, and God did not allow Abraham to kill his son. So one of the differences that I see is that in Genesis 22, God tested Abraham, but then in Judges 11, it is Jephthah's idea to offer a sacrifice. Now, offering sacrifices is nothing new. People of old would offer a sacrifice to God. They would pay homage to God. They would honor God by offering a sacrifice. That's nothing new. And the sacrifice might be a lamb. It might be a goat. It would be an animal sacrifice. Now, I'm going to give my man Jephthah more credit. Perhaps in Jephthah's mind, I said perhaps in Jephthah's mind, he is thinking about what comes out of his house from the animal stall. Now, keep in mind, in Bible times, that homes had were perhaps 2 or 3 stories. On the bottom story is where the animals were kept. We talked about that last Sunday, which is about the birth of Jesus, when Mary and Joseph, there was no room in the inn, and then Jesus was born in a barn, in a stable, and then placed in a manger. And in Bible times, on that first floor is where the animals were lodged. Can you imagine being in there with the pigs, being in there when Jesus was born, being in there where the pigs, the goats, the horses, the cows, the roosters, the chickens, but that's the way it was. So perhaps in Jephthah's mind, Jephthah is thinking that the first animal that comes out of his house. But what I do want to say is, let's play around. Let's look at this text. If Jephthah had in mind of a human sacrifice, where did he get that idea from? It's a pagan thought. Now here's a learning point. Here's a takeaway. God's people have always been around others, but God's people do not have to practice what others are practicing. We can be around them, among them, but not like them. I wish somebody would say amen. I asked a question a few days ago about fellowship and Christian fellowship. And I want to suggest that all fellowship is not Christian fellowship. Now, Christians should fellowship. Don't get me wrong. I love Christian fellowship. But the key word is Christian fellowship. And we have to really embrace being the people who belong to God. We have to embrace being the people who can be around others, but not like others, and having enough God in us to attract others to us. Human sacrifice is a pagan practice. It's a practice of idolatry. So if Jephthah had in mind of offering a human, he did not get it from God. Are y'all with me? He did not get it from God. He had to get it from the pagans. So let's deal with that. Then what we're going to find, and I'll save that the second view until I read more of the text. But Jephthah's vow is, if you will give the Ammonites in my hand, then whatever comes out from the doors of my house to meet me when I return in peace shall be the Lord's, and I will offer it up as a burnt offering. I think we have to be careful, and this is what most are saying about Jephthah. We got to be careful when we make a vow. Our word is our bond. You're going to find his daughter saying that in a sense. But we got to be real careful. I've heard people say in the past that, when I retire, and thank God if you're able to retire, I'm going to do more for the Lord. When I get this done, I'm going to do more for the Lord. That sounds good. That sounds real good. I've heard it, and people perhaps mean well when they make that statement. When I retire, I'm going to give more time to the Lord. I have found, though, that in more cases, individuals who are committed are already giving time to the Lord. Now, I'm not suggesting that a person cannot do that when they retire, give more time to the Lord. I'm not suggesting that. But what happens in retirement, when we get to retirement, we do find other things to fill up our time. Either we get another job, it may be a part-time job, or we need the money or whatever. Well, if you're able to give more to the Lord, look, we need all the help we can get. But committed folk are usually committed, and they don't have to become more committed. And we have to we want to give some thought to what we say. That's really what the point now. We want to give some thought to what we say. I want to go back to a point that I made earlier. When you become a member of the Lord's church, you are making a commitment. You don't give up on that vow. You don't stop being faithful. You don't let anything get between you and the vow. I heard people say, well, I'm committed to the Lord. I just don't like church. I'm committed to the Lord. I just don't like church. No, 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 no. Your commitment to the Lord involves church. You don't stop coming to church. You don't get petty with members in the church. No, because of the vow that you made. That vow you made was to the Lord. It was to the Lord, and He's going to keep His part. So you need to keep your part. Now what happens is members can, I mentioned earlier, the availability of social media. If you want to hear this preacher one Sunday or one Wednesday, you can just switch him on. Church leaders and preachers and teachers, we don't have that luxury. If I don't want to teach to y'all tonight, I'm just going to pick another crowd. You see, it doesn't really work like that. Vows are important. Vows should be made carefully. Vows should be given much thought before they're made. And that's one of the criticisms that Jephthah gets, is that he was rash. He didn't think about his vow seriously. So that when he made the vow, that vow, whoever comes out. Well, let me go back and say a little bit more about human sacrifices. Human sacrifice is the ritual slaying of one or more humans to please a god, small g. Human sacrifice was widely practiced by many cultures in antiquity. Although the frequency of the practice is difficult to determine, the fact is that such practices were performed for various reasons. The Egyptians, the Sumerians, before 2000 BC, killed servants and possibly family members to bury them with deceased kings, to allow those who had served or been near the official in life to accompany him to the realm of the dead. We could say a whole lot of other things about human sacrifice. In Jephthah's case, Jephthah sacrificed his daughter as fulfillment of a vow. Although how he sacrificed her is not normative. One of the things that I want to say, that we, when we look at a text, you gotta, the text can never mean what it never meant. You've heard me say that. You've heard other people say that. But when you look at a text, you have to look at what the text says, but you also have to look at what the text means. What does the text say, and what does the text mean? If we're going to get on the same page, then we have to look at what the text says, and then we have to address what does it mean. Now we cannot look at the text subjectively. What I mean by that is, you have your way of looking at it, someone else looks at it a different way, and then expect to come to the same conclusion. Now, I realize that most members will not have the tools that a preacher or an elder might have. Most members will not approach the text the same way. But we've got to be objective about it. Even looking at this passage here, this passage here of Jephthah offering his daughter as a human sacrifice. I'm asking a lot of questions. Did he kill his daughter? I doubt that. I doubt that he killed her. God didn't ask him to kill her. And even though he offered he made the suggestion to offer a human sacrifice, killing his daughter would be in opposition to what God commanded. I know that we're going through this culture where we We struggle with some things. We wonder about some things. We say there's some gray areas. But we've got to be very careful to make sure that God says whatever we end up doing or not. And then God is not going to ask us to do something that goes against his will, his way, his nature, his character. So human sacrifice, the killing of a human being to appease or honor God, is not what God is requiring here in Judges 11. So what is he requiring? Well, let's read on. Let's drop down. Well, the Bible says when Jephthah crossed over to fight against the sons of Ammon, the Lord gave them to his hands. And there were 20 cities. Oh, my man is successful. My man is victorious in 20 cities. Now, he didn't get all of the cities, but he got enough of the cities to bring peace, to bring some rest to the land. The sons of Ammon are subdued before the sons of Israel. But here comes, we got to go back to the vow, verse 34. When Jephthah came to his house at Mizpah, behold, his daughter was coming out to meet him with tambourines and with dancing. Now she was his one and only child. Besides her, he had no son or daughter. You see how the writer invites us into this story? I mean, he really gets us in. This is his only child. Jephthah doesn't have a son. He doesn't have a daughter. And he comes back from battle victorious. And his daughter is just as innocent. And guess what? She's happy to see her daddy. I remember when my children were younger, and I would do meetings, and I would come back. They would be happy to see me, the kids and my wife as well, but especially the kids, because if the church took up a love offering, I would come back, I would give my wife, and I would give the kids the love offering. And my girls especially, oh, daddy. And one of them would say, Daddy, you got any more meetings you gonna do? Because they were just happy for me to do a meeting. I remember my youngest, Brittany, was saying, because I'd been gone a lot that year, she said, Daddy, you got any more meetings you gonna do? I said, yeah, baby, I'm about through for the year. And then she scratched her head and said, Daddy, it's December. Like, hey, don't be fooling with me. You ain't got many more. You about through for the year, and we in December. Well, the illustration point is that I'm making it, they were happy to see me. They were real happy to see me. And because they were happy to see me, they came out and just would run and hug on me and that kind of thing. That's what Jephthah's daughter is doing. She's happy to see her daughter. But watch this. When he saw her, he tore his clothes and said, Alas, my daughter, you brought me very low, and you are among those who trouble me. For I've given my word to the Lord, and I cannot take it back. Oh, I'm going back to something I said earlier. When you were baptized, you gave the Lord your word, and you cannot take it back. Oh, my feelings got hurt, but you gave the Lord your word. They didn't shake my hand, but you gave the Lord your word. They called everybody else's name who was on this ministry, but they didn't put mine in the bulletin. But you gave the Lord your word, and you cannot take it back. Well, I heard something from the pulpit, and it sounded like they talking about me. But you gave your word, and you cannot take it back. I'm going to say it again. You don't stop being faithful. You don't find another congregation, because people are the same everywhere. You can run, duck, and hide. But I guarantee you, when you run over there, folk got problems over there. When you duck over here, somebody got a problem there. When you hide, they going through something similar as well. No. Remember your vow. Remember the commitment you made to the Lord. Look at my man Jephthah. He's one of the heroes of faith now. He's in Hebrews 11:32, a man of faith. Watch what he said. I've given my word to the Lord, And I cannot take it back. What's the word? The first that comes out of my house, I'm going to offer as a sacrifice. Notice here's another point that we can give Jephthah. He taught his family well. Oh yeah, he taught his family well. Because verse 36, so she said to him, my father, you have given your word to the Lord. Do to me as you have said, since the Lord has avenged you of your enemies and the sons of Amnon. She said to him, let this thing be done for me. Let me alone for 2 months, that I may go to the mountains and weep because of my virginity, I and my companions. As I read this, I asked my cousin, okay, it tells us something about her. She's a virgin, but why does the writer include her virginity? Why is that important? Why are we told about her being a virgin? I think it's really important to this text. Then he said, go. So he sent her away for 2 months, and she left with her companions and wept on the mountains because of her virginity. One of the things I share with our teachers is when you're reading a narrative, a passage of scripture, and when an important word is repeated, it's there for a reason. So virginity. Here's a young girl who is a virgin. And Jephthah has made this vow. And this vow says whoever comes out of the house first, when I return, I'm going to offer that person as a sacrifice. It's his daughter, his only child. So she goes away for 2 months. And at the end of 2 months, she returned to her father, who did to her according to the vow which he made. And you got to keep reading the text, okay? Sometimes the questions you have is answered if you just keep reading the text. And she had no relations with a man, or she knew no man. She was not intimate with a man. She's a virgin. Thus it became a custom in Israel that the daughters of Israel went yearly to commemorate the daughter of Jephthah the Gileadite 4 days in the year. All right. So, Bro Crusoe, where do you land? Where do you land on this story of Jephthah? Well, let me kind of summarize and then tell you where I think how he offered her as a sacrifice. What must be understood at the outset is that Jephthah's vow could have been a foolish vow. First, it was not required by God. Second, it was in the nature of bargaining with him. Win my battle, Lord, and I'll do this. And then third, it was presumptuous in that it promised the consecration of anything or anyone without explicit regard to the specific rights, privileges, and circumstances of those who could be affected by it. That's why I've said all through this study tonight is that be careful when you make a vow. Give it some thought. Don't leave it open-ended. When a vow of this importance needs to be specific and carefully considered. All right, we know that. But here's the other school of thought that when it comes to Jephthah's daughter, is that she was restricted from marrying a man. She had to live the rest of her life as a virgin. She had to be consecrated exclusively for the service of the Lord. She didn't do anything wrong. She just happened to be a bystander of her daddy's vow. But I want to lean that way more than that he actually took his daughter's life. To me, that's a tension in the text. I mean, even though we know that animal sacrifice was a pattern, I shouldn't say a pattern, but animal sacrifice was practiced. But human sacrifice was not something that God required. Now, if God had said that, then yeah, go ahead and do it. But I just believe I'm leaning towards, and perhaps you have come to a different conclusion, or perhaps you have something else that gives us some more insight. But they're not honoring her death. So every year, for 4 days out of the year, they're going to honor this girl. And I believe it's her virginity. I believe it's her restriction from being with a man because of what her daddy has said. But I do think that we find that Jephthah is a man of faith. I do think that Jephthah's life teaches us to be careful with the commitments that we make. I do think that we learn that it's important to teach your family to value your commitment to the Lord. And his daughter supported the vow that he made. And I want to say again, you and I have made vows to the Lord. And let's honor those vows that we make to the Lord. Looking forward to seeing the members of the Arlington Road Church this coming Sunday. The first Sunday of the year. We are not going to have our Bible study on this coming Sunday. Then the second Sunday, I understand, there's going to be a birthday celebration for all those who have birthdays in the month of January. So I'm looking forward to that. Let's keep the family of Richard Rose in prayer. He's the retired minister of the Great Road Church of Christ in Cincinnati, Ohio. As a little boy, I remember Brother Rose in some fellowships that we would have in the Dayton, Cincinnati, Columbus, Ohio area. And he was known for a number of things. And one was his singing of this song, On the Wings of a Snow White Dove. He passed away. This has been a tough year, man. Many ministers in the Church of Christ have passed away, and the year's not over with yet. So we are praying for the Rose family. Looking forward to what God is going to do in 2023. I want to thank the Arlington Road Church for being steadfast and unmovable and always abounding in the work of the Lord. So until the next time that we meet, may the Lord bless you. And may he bless you real good.
Cleansing blood, I'll go, yeah. Walking with Jesus from day to day, trusting his promise to help us along the way. Trials will come, but he'll carry us through. There's nothing my Jesus, the Son of God, can do. With Jesus building bridges to life, yeah, where we're breaking down the barriers. We'll do it with our Savior in mind.